Hello, bienvenue sur notre podcast IDK. Je suis votre host Kim.
Moi, je suis Dylan, and today we have a special edition in English. We have a special guest on our left
I'm Tanisha.
and our returning guest.
Returning with a different hair, Joanne.
Yeah.
Cool. So one of the things that I think we all have in common, obviously to different extents, but I think we definitely have it all in common, is we're all sort of entrepreneurs to a certain extent. And one of the cool things that I was talking, before the show was Tanisha's more recent journey actually into creating like her own little thing. So yeah, tell us a little bit more. How's that going? What's the process look like?
So I am a graphic designer,
Mhm.
and I recently decided to pursue the freelancing avenue, which is a little bit scary for me because I've always worked underneath someone. So starting out was a bit of a new chapter for me, having to do a lot of things on my own, like getting a BRN and trying to figure out whether I need to pay taxes or not. So that was a bit of a scary journey for me. It still is scary. So I've started my freelance, which is called Tan Creations. And it's basically graphic design and interior design because I studied interior design. And yeah, I'm just taking it one step at a time.
How's the actual process like? How did you find it? Like, because one of the things I think people struggle with, and I struggled with when I started my own thing, was the lack of information on what do you need in terms of paperwork, in terms of taxing, like your taxation, like you're saying, and also like how do you, especially because you're self-employed, so like especially from a financial perspective, a bank account is a bank account. Your work money comes in and your personal money goes out and all that fun stuff. How did you navigate through all that?
So I pretty much just went to the place.
What is the place?
I went to
Hogwarts.
the business registration place in Port Louis. I just said I wanted to register myself, not as a company though. Just because with a company comes with a lot more responsibility and just a lot more paperwork. When you are registering as an individual, you actually don't need any paperwork. You literally just come and say, I want to register as an individual, and you pay 125 rupees. And they'll just ask you what your name is and if you have a business name, and then you're registered. And then depending on what exactly you fall under, because there's different categories, and under each category there's a different trade fee. So for me as a graphic designer, I have to pay 7,000 rupees every year. So that's just for me. If someone is pursuing something else, that is information that you will have to go and inquire. But if you actually go on the business registration place, on their website, you can get information.
Cool. Now, big question for everybody. Why? Why go entrepreneur? Why freelance? Why are you doing? Why did you decide to take that avenue?
Right, you're asking me, right?
Yes, of course.
You're staring at me, of course. Well, I started my business when I was still in employment, working for somebody else. I used to work for an advertising company and work in communications. And then I decided to start a part-time cake business on the side, which was completely different. Actually, I needed something different from what I was doing in my daily life. So I started a Cup of Joe, because my name is Joanne.
I love the pun. I love the pun. I was like, I understand the pun.
Super intended. But I registered it as a business, because as a company, because I see my company, my brand growing in the future. And I wanted to start as such. So I did it part-time for a while. This year I just happened to lose my job, my let's say corporate job. That's why I went full-time into making cakes. So it was more of it just happened in my case. I think that if I had not been made to leave the other job, I wouldn't have gone full-time at a cup of joe, because it's a huge decision, especially financially. I mean, we all know that there is the safety of a job that you might not like so much versus the freedom actually of doing whatever you want with your brand. So for me, it was about, first of all, creating a creative brand that I could manage from the beginning till the end, even though it means that you're doing basically everything. So when I say the Cup of Joe team, I'm the baker, I'm the accountant, I'm the cleaner, I'm the, what do you call that, CEO? No, I don't call myself a CEO. Founder, there you go. There are so many buzzwords actually around jobs. But the main reason why I did it was to have a creative escape out of the corporate world, because I did it 5 times a week, sometimes more. I worked odd hours and things like that, and so I needed my little escape. That's how it started. But my little escape eventually became something that saved my life, because when I didn't put all my eggs in the same basket. So by the time I lost my corporate job, I had built a brand over 4 or 5 years. So it gave me something to fall back on as opposed to nothing. So beyond the pragmatic aspect of having a side business, there was also the passion, the love, however you want to call it, the pathos for whatever I do. But yeah, so it turned out to be a good thing.
And you?
I kind of get what you mean when you say to have that security of having a full-time job.
Yeah.
Because that is currently where I'm at, because I still work for a company based in Botswana, and I'm still working full-time. So my freelance just started, and it's kind of it's scary to take that jump, because financially you don't want to take such a huge step and have to start from scratch. So it's it's kind of the safety net, knowing that even if this side hustle doesn't work out, at least I have a security, a side income, a full income, especially with COVID and everything. For me, it was a bit scary to think, if I actually leave my full-time job, what if I don't get clients? What am I going to do then, when I just left a very secure job? And I think that also comes with passion as well. If you're really passionate about something, you will go over and beyond.
Well, sometimes passion is not enough, to be very honest. I'm sorry, I can hear you right there. No, passion is not enough, because you get tired. You're a human being. And sometimes people are clients or potential customers are it's your passion anyway. How about you work more for less, blah, blah, blah. And it's yeah, sure, but I still eat, I still have rent, I still do all those things. So another way for me, I love making cakes. I love creating and stuff. But when it becomes a chore, then passion goes away. And from the moment passion starts to die, it doesn't mean that it's not coming back. It is there. It's just you're tired. You get tired, and it's normal. When passion seems to recede a bit, there is something else that kicks in, which is your survival instinct, which is, I need to make money, I need to eat, and I need to pay rent. And that's when you go and find your customers. You see that little, scare that you have of not being able to get whatever, X number of customers or X turnover or whatever. It is created in that moment.
When it's a do or die
solution,
situation.
the solution to that is created in that moment.
That makes sense.
But you still haven't answered why you decided to freelance. You told me all of this, but you didn't tell me why.
So I won't speak. I'll try and put it in
Diplomatic.
Yes.
All right.
I felt a little not trapped, but creatively, I didn't feel like I had that freedom. I felt like I was creating with someone over my shoulders. I didn't feel like I had that freedom to explore what I wanted. Whereas when you are a freelancer or self-employed, you get to determine what creative direction you want to go into, and whether the client takes it or not, that's basically on them. But yeah,
That's bad customer service.
it's not bad customer service, because you want to give the customer the best design, not necessarily that they understand what is the best design. And
Okay.
that's why it is our job to kind of pave that path for them. And so that was kind of why I decided to take this leap of faith, because I wanted to explore a little bit more with my creativity.
I'm a little bit on both, actually, because the reason why I said passion isn't enough and why I was like, wait a minute, sort of, you know.
I heard you
Yeah,
thinking that.
I was like, wait a minute, is because for me, one of the main sort of reasons why I decided to jump into self-employment, there's a multitude of reasons, right? Where one already within my field, I had reached the cap, like salary cap.
Yeah, you were plateauing basically.
Financially, there was no way for me to climb higher unless I got into management, which I don't want to go. Like, I really don't want to. I'm a digital marketer, so I love actually, doing the things myself, the technical aspects. But there was really no way for me to go financially higher. That was one. And then two, where the passion and also a little bit of what she says comes in, is a lot of the projects that I took on, or the companies I worked on here, like as an employee, there were so many constraints, so many things that we are not doing here because maybe the market isn't ready, or maybe because the company just doesn't want to explore, depending on a case-by-case basis. But there was really a lot that I felt that I could do, or I would want to explore more. So I was like, I sort of, see where you're going with that. And so I made the decision to be like, all right, cool. I think I can earn more if I freelance. I think I can, sort of explore and do, what it is that I want to do in terms of, my career choice, in terms of like what I want to do within the digital marketing sphere. But then why I was also doubting, not doubting, but like sort of questioning, is passion enough? I guess we were, I think, thinking of two different contexts.
Probably.
Which is why I was like, okay, because at some point, for example, I was, and she knows because she's followed my journey for a while, like I was working insane hours, like self-employed, but it didn't feel like work, right? I loved what I was doing so much. Like I was literally waking up, working like 18 hour days, going to bed and doing the same thing all over again the next day. Not even 5 days, 6 to 7 days in a row, right? And so that's what's like, for me, like when I think, I was like, passion got me through that. If I wasn't passionate about what I do, there's no way I'd have managed to stand so long. But then I get what you're saying, where doing something just for the fun of it and not necessarily making money off of it, like in that particular context, definitely passion, isn't enough. But here's an interesting question is, I mean, I guess you're still starting, so I guess I'll apply it more to you, is how do you deal with the fluctuations in income? I mean, I don't know about the cake industry because I know everybody loves cake.
But there's a lot of competition. And it's quite funny because do you want to finish your question?
No, this is like, how do you deal with the fluctuation of income?
The thing is, when I first started A Cup of Joe, I usually say that I was in a blue ocean of cake making, because cake makers in Mauritius did a certain type of cakes, and I did something that was quite different, which was more artistic, more. I actually applied what I learned from the advertising world to the cake world, which is take a brief and then make custom bakes. And I saw and I see every piece of cake, every cake as a creation, as a piece of art that will stay just for one night and then be eaten and then it's gone, So I have another philosophy of cake itself. But yeah, it used to be a blue ocean, and then with COVID since last year to this year, there has been a number of cake makers coming up, bakers and stuff. So I felt like my blue ocean was becoming a red ocean. And I mean, maybe 6 months ago, no, like 8 months ago, that was not a worry for me, because I did have the full-time job. I did have that safety of income coming in every month, and everything that I was getting from A Cup of Joe was, everything over and above. Yeah. Extra. So it was like money to save up a bit, to have fun, and just over and above. But then going in full time, I really had to manage my expectations around my expenses. I think that is very important, because you will not get the same revenue all the time. Yeah. Sometimes it will be great, but when you have a lot of orders, for example, let's say around Easter, or there are certain periods during the year where there's a lot of birthdays, I now know after 4 years of making cakes, that those periods, during those periods, I will make money and then save up a bit and not use all of it. Like, you really become an adult in that sense, because you need to manage your finances. You won't be able to have the same expenses every month. For example, I used to previously, when I had those 2 jobs, I used to get my nails done all the time, hair done all the time. But then you realize that you don't necessarily need those things. So you start focusing on what's more important. For example, paying your bills, paying your rent. If you have a kid, that might come first. So yeah, it's about managing expectations about life, and especially not thinking that because you're an entrepreneur, that I think we have a very glamorous idea of what an entrepreneur is. It's not glamorous. The great thing about being an entrepreneur is that you manage your time. So, and for example, I manage my looks. I can look the way I want. Nobody's going to question anything. Whilst in the corporate world, that's a bit more complicated. Although I got away with a lot of things, I have to admit, because I just rocked up to work and I was like, it's done now. So, but yeah, the time management is super cool. But yeah, with the time management comes other drawbacks, and the creativity, the freedom that you have to express yourself comes with other drawbacks as well. So yeah, I think it's about managing expectations.
Good. Donc aujourd'hui, on a eu un invité très spécial, Joanne, qui a un projet que on voulait qu'on partage avec vous.
Donc, je m'apprête à aller étudier au London School of Economics en septembre. Et pour ce faire, j'ai commencé un crowdfunding initiative avec Méthane Costé. Donc, si vous voulez savoir plus de mon projet d'études, en fait, je vais faire un MSc in Media and Communications dans le but d'étudier plus en profondeur les questions de New Media, Data-Driven Technologies and Data Governance. Et voilà, je vous invite à aller Méthane Costé sur la page de Méthane Costé pour m'aider à reach my goals.
Le projet sera dans the links below. That's actually the biggest, I think, one of my biggest struggles when I made that transition, because I think my transition was the biggest streak of bad luck you could imagine. So,
really?
I'll tell you. So I made the decision to go fully like self-employed, freelance, whatever you want to call it. I'd say maybe around September 2019, give or take. And so things were fine. Revenue was great, right? And so I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go on vacation to South Africa for my birthday. And then obviously when I come back, revenue will still be fine, and we'll just put back that sort of savings back in. Here's what two things to this story. One, all my contracts were local, so just keep that in mind for that little bit. So I go to South Africa for the vacation, and I come back 1 week later, COVID lockdown. Bam.
1 week later?
Yeah.
How long did you go to South Africa
No,
for?
I didn't go in September. I went for my birthday in 2020.
Right, okay.
Sorry, I should have, yeah.
I was like, did you spend 4 months in South Africa?
I mean, I wouldn't mind though. I wouldn't mind, but no, I went.
It's like, I spent 4 months in South Africa, I'm poor. No
No. I mean, considering obviously, I have a partner, I have a child, all that fun stuff. We went for 3 weeks, and then when we came back, 1 week later, and we were the crazy thing was we were thinking about extending the trip, and finally we're like, no, you know what, that would be a little bit too risky financially. But then it turned out like, thank God we made it, because closed down and everything. But what ended up happening was precisely like for lockdown, because all my contracts were locally based at zero. I was like unemployed. Like when I say unemployed, mind you, I'm self-employed, so technically I'm unemployed, but I didn't have any contracts for those 3 months. And then I sort of like decided, okay, I need to sort of pivot somewhere or some way to try and, make ends meet, because otherwise we're not going to last very long. And so it took a little bit of time, and things sort of picked up, I'd say around November last year.
Really? That long though?
Yeah, it took a long while to sort of, really get back to a comfortable sort of stride. And then like this year has been really good, but it's been, like as is any business. And then, but like you said, it sort of forced me to grow, because I had to think about like, okay, like you said, what is important? Like I love eating out all the time, but is that really a thing? What things come first? Like, the family costs, I have a child, so his needs, his stuff that needs to be paid as well. And so that's why I was like, that's why I asked the question, because I think it's one of the biggest things that is interesting. And then I think another mistake, which I, up until as recent as 2 months ago, so this is quite recent learning, I still haven't made, I mean, I have now, but I wasn't making the difference between gross earnings and net earnings. Because you pay the tax at the end of the year, whereas when you incorporate it or in a company, they pay it for you, pay as you earn, and then whatever you take home is yours to spend as you feel like.
Yeah.
And so I was having a lot of that problem where you earn X amount and you would take X as you can blow X.
You're crazy, man.
No, I mean, blow.
Yeah, you were like,
No, I mean,
money.
Legit, and no, and it was that was bad. That was, I think, one.
But
of
I have a question for you though.
Yeah.
At any point during that very unlucky stride, did you think maybe I should get another job?
Oh no, dude,
maybe I should change careers. Or
I
something?
did career change, no, but I did second guess myself, and I was like, I do need to go back. Maybe I do need to go back to getting a fixed income, because we at some point were really in the red zone, because we, like I said, we had depleted our savings on the holiday, and things was really, really, really thin. And at some point we were like, all right, are we going to lose the house? And I was like, you know what, ego aside, creative preferences aside, I've got to do what I've got to do.
Again, a question of priority.
Yeah. I've got to do what I've got to do. Maybe I should go back to being employed. And I did apply for quite a few jobs. Some of them panned out, some of them didn't. And then somewhere in the negotiation discussions, things sort of it didn't necessarily go as it should, and so it didn't really conclude. But yeah, definitely, at some point, like, you you really do think to yourself, like, should I go back? But coming back to you, like, I also think that there's no way to really push yourself and your business to the limits if you're counting on your safety net. Because if you know something's going to catch you, you're not going to push yourself. You're not going to worry about it. It's like, I've got this. Why do I need to put? But in a really like do or die situation, like I need to find clients. I need to, deliver this. I need to do that. That's where you're like, all right, it doesn't matter. Like if I don't have to sleep and I have to go start, sending 10,000 emails to each different company, pushing through my graphic design, in your case, service, then that is what you do. So I think in a certain sense that fear, especially with a safety net, is sort of a luxury, if you will. But once you don't have it, like it's do or die. Like there's no time to be scared. You just run and go with it.
Yeah.
No, that's very true. And I think that's something that's very important as well, is that everybody has those moments of doubts at some point. And I think that COVID has just exacerbated everything. During the lockdown, for example, I didn't have any orders for a while. So I remember, first of all, I remember being like, well, what do we do now? So I applied to universities, but that was something else.
No, that's a really weird thing, but all right, we'll let that slide. All right, do your thing.
No, I was just like, universe, okay, you made me lose my job. That it was not my fault. It was not my fault. But I was like, all right, what am I going to do with that time? And then I did apply for universities and I did get in. But then I realized also that had I been in a full-time job, juggling 2 jobs and living my life normally, I would never have had the time to apply to universities or the energy. But I mean, there was a waiting period. I didn't know if I was getting in or not or whatever. And I remember waking up maybe 3 times at different moments in the morning saying like, do you want to send your CV somewhere? Like, do you want to go back to a 9-to-5 job? And then I saw myself driving to Eben from Flic en Flac. And I was like, nope. And then I saw myself writing a cover letter. And I was like, no. And then I saw myself being told what to do in my job by somebody who was probably less qualified than me, but had more power than me within a company. I said, no. So I sat my ass down, applied to universities, and I tried to find new ways actually to make my business work outside of parties and birthdays and things like that. So I made like different products that could be delivered without a birthday context, for example. So again, that's one of those moments where you're like, doubts, really seriously consider going back. And then you're like, nah. And then you find solutions.
I think it depends on how bad it is, the situation.
I didn't have a safety net either.
No, I'm not saying like you have a safety net, but I think it depends on how bad the situation is.
Yes. Yeah, the context you mean.
Really when I was doubting and I was like, okay, I need to put my pride aside. We were like I'd say maybe a month, maybe 2 months away from losing our house. A month. I was like, I have a kid. If it was just me, I can sleep.
But that's the thing. Yeah, I think I was quite lucky in that sense, or privileged in the sense that there's just me and my cat. So we manage. That's okay.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying though, in terms of like at some point you're like, all right, you know what, I'll make it work. But I think it also depends on how critical things are. Because at some point you're like, it can't just go on like this. But here's an interesting thing. As entrepreneurs, and especially as you go through periods of doubt, who or what is your support system? Because I think as an employee, you have fellow employees that you can complain to in the mess hall.
No.
I mean, it depends on whether there's snakes. Yeah, that's a different thing. That's a different discussion of how big a snake your fellow employees are.
Was it a fucking nest?
But I mean, most people, at least most of the companies I worked with didn't have too many snakes in there. So you could sort of maybe complain to some trusted fellow employees.
Yeah, I did have, when I was in employment, as in working for a company, I did at some point have like really, really close friends, I would say, at work. I call them friends, not colleagues. So yeah, there was that little crew, and at some point we were just supporting each other because it was long hours. It was quite difficult. But when you're on your own. That's something you have to learn to manage as well, because even the self-doubting part, it's probably your mind playing tricks on you as well. So there's that fine line too. There is the real circumstance of I'm gonna be on the streets or like real consequences, but sometimes it's just your mind playing tricks on you. And I don't have many people around me. So my cat is not very useful in listening to my problems, unfortunately. But I do have one or two really close friends to whom, and they are friends who are in different jobs or who have different qualifications or just life paths in general. So I managed to get different kind of advices from different people, but put together it actually makes sense. For example, I have one of my really close friends, he's a masseuse, and what he told me, because he was self-employed before I was, what he told me was like, he knows how I get carried away with work and I can just work around the clock, not take a break, blah, 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 and be always like 100%. And what he told me is like, if you want to be a self-employed or an entrepreneur for a long time, you have to pace yourself. Otherwise you will burn out at the very beginning.
I hear that.
And you won't be able to keep
that
going
very well.
Well, if you've said that, yeah. Well, somebody else somebody else said it to me, and it's very true. Because you might just get tired and bitter very quick.
Because I think we're in August now, so in June, I was fortunate enough to get some amazing contracts in the digital marketing sphere, opportunities, and that 6 months ago would have thought impossible.
Yeah.
And being the fact that it was impossible 6 months ago, I was like, there's no way I'm going to pick and choose. I have to grab all of them. And what ended up happening was that each turned out to be like a sort of full-time job where it's 6 to 8 hours each. So you're looking at like 24-hour days. Now, there's no way I can work 24 hours, but I was working like 20 hours a day with 4 hours of sleep.
What?
And I still had to catch up on the weekend. I'm still catching up on the weekend. And I still have a personal life and a wife who, wants to do things and blah, blah, blah. Like it was hectic. And I think I kept it for, it goes to 6 weeks, I think. When at some point it just...
What did you do then?
I died. Mentally.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like, you look pretty alive to me right now.
No, like it was a huge burnout where at some point for a whole week, and even like it would have lasted longer, but I had to force myself to sort of pick myself back up. I didn't want to look at screens. I didn't want to look at TV. I didn't want to look at my phone. And I'm someone who's obsessed with, like how I am. I'm all over the place.
That's when I said like passion sometimes is not enough.
At some point I was like, yeah, no, I couldn't look at screens, and I had to force myself to sort of get back because like it's priorities, right? So yeah, pacing yourself, I think is definitely a thing. Finding a support system in moments of doubt, definitely a thing. Like I don't think I'd be this far, especially where I am, without my wife as a support system. Like, no ways.
Shout out to Jill.
Yeah. No, there's no way, because it's especially considering how crazy my hours get, and the fact that we have a kid. She's picking up all the slack with my kid, like, and especially in the traditional context where, at some point I had to go out for meetings because I was working in the events thing. So I had to go out and then I'd come back at like 2, 3 in the morning. But imagine a thing as a married woman, your husband's out every day up until 2, 3 in the morning. At some point, you have doubts. You have to have doubts. But she held it down. Like no doubt, she held it down. Like, she's like, wait, look, I don't like you going out because it's actually dangerous to come back. She's more worried about the safety bit than actual doubts. But like that sort of support where like, I understand that you have to do what you have to do, and also being able to support me when I was down, like with that whole period where the unlucky stride was there. I really don't think I could have made it otherwise. I think the support system it needs to be there. And that's actually part of the reason why I'm like, all right, if I know someone is starting a business or has a business, I was like, hey, if you need to meet or talk or whatever, just
I think that's very important.
come through, talk it out, cry if you want, have cake and cry. Well, in your case, you make cakes, so that's not going to be useful.
So just cry.
Just cry. Just cry.
Just cry.
Just
no
cry,
cake
but
for you.
talk it out and cry, because I sort of understand what, at some point, like the business is up and down.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is that entrepreneurship is a very sort of lonely path and lonely journey. And you need that support system. So yeah.
How do you feel about your decision then? Or I have a more precise question actually. Do you think that you will eventually make the jump from having both jobs to
definitely.
Yeah.
But I don't want to jump too soon.
Fair.
So like I said, I'm taking it one step at a time.
Good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Cool. Well, thanks guys. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Cool.
you for coming.
Good.
Yes, no, ragazzi, dormi. No, no, ti ha gatto.